Sandton, South Africa, who place eyeball teams and deliver projects. Each of these beautiful buildings represents companies that were once started by successful entrepreneurs. I will teach you how to make them remain relevant and grow into the wonderful future of technology and customer-focused innovation. My name is Roelof Vermeulen and I'm an Entinologist.
My goal of this session is going to be different from the previous two. It's going to be a bit more driven towards the project management side of things. So I want to provide an understanding of how delivery changed and how it needs to be done in future because of the insane speed at which current innovation is going. So it requires better, more effective ways of delivering. My objectives is to provide you a foundation of how work is done currently and connecting it with the governance that is existing. Also want to provide you a breakdown of delivery and why it fails in the current environment, and then explain the future of delivery with the three sisters of delivery. And the three sisters is what Entinology is using to do delivery with. It's probably a half-day session of the actual Entinology curriculum for the 3-day course, but I'm going to try and fit it into this 1 hour. Now, I'm going to just introduce myself again, as with every session, for those newcomers. Some of you that is going to listen to the session later on and will join the session at some stage have worked with me before, but I think none of what I'm going to give you now is going to be a surprise. I'm an entrepreneur who started my first business when I was in high school, and I bought vegetables, repackaged them, I sold them for a profit. As an entrepreneur, I had businesses in a variety of arenas, from property development company, I had a paint shop, I had an events company, a liquor store, online marketing business. I've had many more businesses. I was a multimillionaire at the age of 26, and I was completely broke before my 27th birthday. I started my IT career in 1996 when I learned software development in FoxPro 2.6, if you want to Google that. I later moved over to Visual Basic 5, .NET, etc. I wrote my last line of code in 2008. I was the creator and also the lecturer of the Practical Risk-Based Approach course, a regulatory project management course that was presented by the University of Pretoria to even the regulator in 2019 and 2020. The past 15 years, I've been a senior project manager and program manager, and for the past 12 years, I specialized in the financial services sector. I worked at places like ABSA, Standard Bank, Nedbank, Old Mutual, Barclays, ZTE, and Sun International. I've represented banks in the FIC and in the South African Reserve Bank for various regulatory projects as well. I've introduced XP successfully in a regulated environment in 2019, and I was one of the first PMs to successfully introduce TDD into a highly regulated environment. I am the founder and the creator of Entinology, a system which I have been using for the past 7 years. And today, in my working environment as my business, I am a keynote speaker and a consultant who helps businesses navigate the new approach of getting projects delivered with entrepreneurial project management and AI. So that is in short who I am. In my previous two sessions, I went through this incredible impact that AI has had on the speed of innovation and the future of jobs. The use of AI is part of the tool set used by Entinology within our curriculum. So it's a vital part of the way we work in the future. And it will definitely be more vital as the months go on. But today I'd like to move more into the direction of the delivery part of Entinology. For that, I'd like to take you on another journey. I'd like to share you, first of all, with you my three greatest passions in life. Just gives you an idea of who I am, where I come from. The first one is people. I have a firm belief that people are amazing and talented. I believe there are too many people who make negative statements towards each other and about each other. I believe that most of the time people in the workplace behave in a manner aligned to the leadership of an organization. I love people and often find myself totally flattened by the poisonous leadership that exists in organizations. Earlier this year, I experienced the worst manager I have ever experienced in my entire career. Someone that shouts at people, gaslighting people, and in a group discuss how bad other people are by using them as an example for poor performance. This is despite the fact that these people are amazing, talented, hardworking superstars, and by no means what this poisonous manager was describing. Everyone reporting to her lived in fear. We had resignations, contract terminations, and transfers that was happening at a scale I've never encountered in my lifetime. But it was also a blessing in disguise. See, it gave me an opportunity to observe one of the worst leaders I've ever seen and experienced, and at the same time observe the negative impact that it had on the organization, but also how leadership becomes like water. You all know that saying from Bruce Lee, become like water. Well, this is what happened here. I was in a space where there was a massive leadership gap, and people started filling it in the most interesting ways. Everything slowed down, first of all. I was caught up, and this might be something you can resonate with, in 4 to 6 hour meetings every week to carefully word our weekly status report. Even the raid lock sessions was 4 hours twice a week. Dependency meetings became a 2-hour meeting a week. And we had daily 2-hour management meetings 6 days a week. Yes, we also work Saturdays. And this quickly became a normal working day. Micromanagement was the in thing, but the biggest joke was the contradictory leadership. Thing is, if you have to tell people you are not micromanaging them, but your action says you do, when you have to tell people you are working agile, but your actions say you do not, when you have to tell people you are striving for autonomous teams, but you take it away and belittle and insult leaders in your team that do stand up and start driving the delivery, I can carry on and on. Then you're not a leader, you're a manipulator. But what have I learned from all this? Even in today's mature corporates, there are managers that have no leadership ability, but get away with it because the people reporting to them fill the leadership space. They do not succeed because of the poisonous manager, they succeed despite them. The other lesson I learned was just how slow delivery can be when governance is applied incorrectly. How that impacted people to transform into a robotic state for self-preservation and zero innovation. People become pretentious, zero trust, and with no transparency. Every word is carefully designed to ensure no consequences. But here is what I also learned from the true leaders in that space. It is not possible to activate people. with poor leadership above you. See, there are benefits to good leadership. Leaders that activate their people, activate trust, activate personal responsibility within those teams, activates passion, activates efficiency, activates delivery speed by many orders of magnitude. But those true leaders are very, very rare. My second passion, it's AI and innovation. I think that's why my first two presentations was more in line with that topic. My first encounter with AI was many years ago, 2001, around there. And it was simply to determine the recency for a CRM solution. I don't know if you're familiar with recency, but it basically gives you an idea of when last your customer came into a website or in software, in this case that I was using it for. And if there's any kind of frequency or behavior that you can monitor. Anyway, as a PM, I also used AI daily to improve wording with like Grammarly, etc., spelling and grammar in general. But as I started using generative AI, everything changed for me. However, it was its impact on the speed of innovation that exploded my brain and initially activated fear for my children's future. See, I thought it's going to really make life for them very difficult. And I think a lot of people still think so. But as I used it and realized that AI is actually just making life easier and faster, much, much faster, that my fears got replaced by frustration as to how slow we humans are making things. It was also here that I felt divided into the stupidity of governance intent versus governance in practical application. How the practical application of governance has been sufficient until the explosion of AI innovation in the past year. And I say the past year, AI has been around for a very long time, for decades. But in the past year, there's been a massive shift. And how that governance is going to cause massive risk to public companies if they do not make drastic changes to enable efficiency, instead of increasing risk tenfold with the careful management and control approach that they've got. So back or forward onto my third passion, and that's delivery systems. Now, I'm not talking software systems, I'm talking systems that you use to do stuff with. Their efficiency and the art of its unintended consequences. Today is all about that third passion, and one of the greatest of the Entinology systems that I've got. The problem is, I will use words you associate with methodologies like, for example, Scrum or Kanban, but describe something that makes no Scrum sense or no Kanban sense. So I'm going to ask that you please reserve any judgments on my use of the words to describe something that it's not. I'm simply trying to connect to existing frames of reference to make something make sense to you. This is not about Jira, it's not about Scrum, it's not about Kanban. It's about a system I use at scale within agile or non-agile environments. So with all of this context, I want to take you on this journey, because the content I like to provide today will not be an easy one to land. It will contradict a lot of what you believe to be true, and will definitely contradict much of your training. It's also something I normally land in a 3-day session, as I said before, but this time I have to do it in an hour. What you have to acknowledge, though, is that never in history have we faced a change at the speed it is happening at the moment. The old can no longer work. In fact, the old will cause businesses to close down in the next 5 years. You will never imagine which of those ones would close down. The next 5 years will be compared to the rapid extinction of the dinosaurs, but just for businesses. AI is bringing growth to innovation never experienced before in our entire history. This world has never experienced pace of innovation currently experienced. When I set up this session, I had a challenge. I normally present this together with a change in thinking in stages of mindset change. Problem is, how do you present it in 1 hour together with the three sisters? So I'm going to really try and land the message. So let's see if we can get this working. I've consulted in countries in Africa, Europe, UK, and the US. What I found interesting was that all of the businesses in all of these countries had common problems in how projects were landed. Agile adoption or transformation faced very similar challenges. Corporate governance had very similar issues. But one of the most interesting things we all face is the similarities in failure. Let me explain with a couple of studies. A study by BCS evidenced that only 1 in 8 IT projects were considered successful. Another study by BCS also showed that 24% of waterfall projects were cancelled. And out of the cancelled projects, 95% of them were cancelled during or after the design phase. This means that they went through feasibility and requirements analysis phases before they were cancelled. If you take a simplistic and easy project, feasibility can be done relatively cheaply. Okay, you can get some seed funding of $25,000 and you can assemble a pretty good business case. However, analysis phase comes at a cost that can in most organizations not be measured. BAU staff, business as usual staff, is normally not at cost, and their time is often not allocated under the project cost. But guess who gets into those meetings and workshops? That various projects required to finish the requirements and analysis phases of each project. That's where those guys are. In my first session, I gave a breakdown of the impact of meetings, where a monthly status meeting by the CEO of a small company of 5x5 wide organizational structure end up in an insane cost of $470,000 per month. Imagine the impact of an analysis phase and the cost on your organization. This do not even include the impact on other work that you've got, where people are pulled into every analysis meeting imaginable. I'm sure you can associate with this. I'm confident it's happening in your organizations as well. Think about it. There are people whose daily task is just to talk in meetings every day. To top it all, they're also expected to deliver their real job work as well. Let's talk about a tough one. Let's talk about Agile. Measuring failure on an Agile project and getting it right is almost impossible. It's a very tough one to measure. And what people do, when organizations do, is they measure it with the same criteria as TPM, traditional project management. And that is actually impossible. So I'm going to just have a quick chat about that. This is also the main reason you cannot compare the two worlds of delivery, Agile and Waterfall, in any way. There's no scientific way that you can do it. Let me explain why. Agile allows for iterative delivery, TPM does not. Agile allows for new requirements to be introduced, TPM does not. Agile allows for change, TPM does not. What TPM does, it's using change control to facilitate any of those changes. So you cannot measure Agile in the same way as traditional project management. This is very important. This is also the reason Agile transformation planning has to start at the organization's governance first. It is also the reason Agile transformation must be done top down. Everybody says bottom up. It's not working that way. It can't work. But this incomparable methodologies leaves a massive opportunity for people selling their concepts and ideas. because it is easy to make up fake studies on this topic. For example, the clickbait study of Junaid Ali. This compares the Agile Manifesto, yes, the Agile Manifesto with Waterfall. Now, let me be very clear. The Agile Manifesto states the following: individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. Compare that to Waterfall. Clearly defined sequence of execution, with project phases that do not advance until the phase receives the final approval. It has fixed scope, fixed cost, and fixed timelines. How on earth do you release a study on that science? There is zero chance of comparison, and I mean zero. Well, if you wrote a book and want to sell it, you can come up with horse manure like that. And Junaid Ali needed his book, this study to sell his book. Yes, he is selling a book, guys. That's why he did the study. Anyway, Junaid Ali's fake research is all over the internet and referenced by many people. But it serves as the ideal example of why you can never compare methodologies. And this is very important to me that we understand it. None of these methodologies are comparable in any meaningful way. So stop entertaining these discussions on the topic. There's a lot of better things to do. You're wasting your time with unimportant things. Back to the studies. According to the Pulse of the Profession 2018 study, carried out by the PMI, the Project Management Institute, 70% of projects fail. Also, a very important fact is that 56% of companies only use a single project management methodology. So it's either waterfall or it's agile, but it's a single project management methodology. In the 12th Annual State of Agile report by version 1, it states that 52% of the survey stated that more than half of their company's teams used Agile. More than half. However, only 11% of businesses uses Agile methodologies all the time for all of their projects. Again, a very important point. So, I don't know, if you look at it objectively, you will definitely know that Waterfall breaks Agile. So even if you do a little bit of a mix of it, there's a chance that the Agile is already broken. Now, regarding the Agile methodologies that they're using, Scrum and its derivatives, like Scrum Bun and Scrum 2 and XP Hybrid, are mostly used by 70% of them. Now, what do these statistics really mean? I want to just quickly, before I continue on, add another topic here. I want to go slightly off topic, just to drive this point through with one of the most complicated, most difficult projects that you can get. Let's talk about regulatory projects. A regulatory project is almost always accompanied by unmovable deadline date. And if a failure, a fine and reputational damage. I know if you're looking at this on a cell phone, the text on the left might be small, but you can read there what fines organizations have gotten in the past. It's scary. It often results out of changes in legislation. So there's new legislation, or maybe an audit report that was done and there was findings. From a project view, it is important to understand the impact on the organization first. In a large-scale regulatory project, this might lead to decisions that will impact the methodologies that we use. However, the timelines cannot move. Now, you might wonder about scope. Well, it depends on the risk the organization is willing to take. So, to say the scope is set is a half-truth, because there might be room for movement. especially if the organization follows a risk-based approach. Using the Entinology diamond, we extract the impact the new legislation has on the organization. Does it impact the people, the process, data, architecture, the software solutions that they've got? This is then carefully mapped out. And the way we do it is then presented into a position paper. The position paper then informs certain proposals of dealing the regulatory requirements. Now at scale, this will then end up in a multi-dimensional solution. So it's not a simple project. We can have 3 phases to an approach. For example, a tactical solution, a strategic solution, and BAU changes. These 3 are very different. The risks that are accepted needs to be documented, and there can be an impact on the policy documentation in the organization, or even the data standard of the organization. So that's just 2 examples. There's a hell of a lot of impact that can be across the organization. At this point, it's important to note that everything, decisions, requirements, activities, etc., needs to be formally documented. So this is one of the project types where a competent project administrator is compulsory. It's not negotiable. You have to have a project administrator. I like to think the reason is obvious, because there's criminal liability with legal compliance. Unlike an innovation project, the risk is with the CEO of the company. The CEO is rarely involved in these projects, but will be the one sent to jail if something goes wrong. And the something that goes wrong always happens after the project is closed out. I mean, the guys do the project, finish it, close up, gone. Project is closed. And it sometimes even happens after the tenure of the CEO at the time ended. So it might even be a brand new CEO. He wasn't even there when it was completed. There's nothing worse. And if you look at the video that you're seeing at the moment, facing a bunch of attorneys and judges with a half-baked project closure. These project closure reports is not sufficient, but there are many aspects to regulatory projects that makes it different to any other projects. It's also not always done in the same way. Let's say you have a comprehensive impact with many dependencies. You will probably land delivery that are tracked daily. You might even opt for a management style, depending on the risk. But you might also be under such insane pressure to deliver that solution that waterfall is too slow. And this is often the case. Often the best solution is also a purchased solution, because it immediately de-risks the organization, especially if it's industry fit. Regulators know it and they trust it, but still you will require a comprehensive RFI, RFP, and RFQ process that details exactly how much percentage-wise of the regulatory requirements will be met, and what will happen to the requirements not met. Will there be a tactical solution put in place, or other strategic solutions, etc.? But here's my question. Can you use Agile? Why not? Can you use just waterfall? Again, not ideal necessarily. Depends on what it is that you need to do. But remember, waterfall type projects is required for purchase of software. How you deploy it might be Agile. You might use Scrum, you might use Kanban. It doesn't really matter. However, I found that the PMOs in organizations are not aligned to governance needs for regulatory projects, as it was tailored for a one-size-fits-all, method-specific, and totally unpractical for use in regulatory projects. In organizations where I played a key role in implementing PMOs, I was often frustrated by the stupidity of method-specific approaches. especially when so-called hybrid methods are created. I've represented banks in the FIC and in the Reserve Bank. I quickly realized that just following the standards of PMOs will get you into trouble very quickly. And it will expose your executive to insane risk that they didn't even know about. And this resulted in me often being sandwiched between the PMO, line management, and sponsors whilst trying my best to enable my teams to deliver. This contributed to frequent near burnouts for me because my focus was the delivery aspect, but I also had to focus on the TPM interests and risks, and most importantly, the process that my leadership insisted on. The first time I realized that you should separate the worlds and came up with the three sisters was in 2012. Since then, I adapted to a system that was completely method agnostic. The last piece of the puzzle landed when I executed my XP project in 2019. I walked out of a meeting with the executives of our biggest telecoms company in South Africa, and I was working for a small bank. I walked into the office of the CIO and I asked him permission. I walked to the dev manager and I asked him to start coding with the CIO. I don't know if you know how XP works, but if you have the cooperation of that level of executive, you've got open doors swinging everywhere for you. A week later, we had a highly complex API built for the telecoms company, but it was in dev. 2 weeks later, I sat in the same executive meeting and I informed the telecoms company that we were ready to test. Now, from a governance perspective, everything was in place, but the process was not waterfall because it was better to do it in XP. Well, when I left the bank 6 months later, the telecoms company was still busy gathering requirements.
At this point, I quickly want to take a break and just tell you a bit more about Entinology. Are you ready to catapult your organization into the future of delivery? Seize this exclusive opportunity to transform your business and leave your competition in the dust. The Entinology Entrepreneurial PM certification stands alone as the first of its kind in the world, offering unparalleled insights into AI-driven delivery strategies. Imagine mastering cutting-edge techniques that will revolutionize your operations, foster high-performance teams, and instill an entrepreneurial mindset throughout your organization. This isn't just a workshop. It's your gateway to becoming a trailblazer in the rapidly evolving landscape of AI-powered delivery. Time is of the essence. The future of delivery is unfolding now, and those who hesitate will be left behind. Don't let this chance to revolutionize your delivery operations slip through your fingers. With limited seats available, the window of opportunity is closing fast. Reserve your spot today and position yourself at the forefront of the AI-driven delivery revolution. The future belongs to the bold. You be among them. And now back to the session.
So, with all of this context, let's get back to today's topic. I hope that you already see that the way we do things currently is filled with a lot of stupidity. I also hope that you can already pick up that we must do things faster. So what is the delivery system that Entinology uses? It is called the Three Sisters of Delivery. It's flow, rhythm, and momentum. Let's look at the current way work is done. It is meeting driven. It is document driven. It is risk driven. This is a very important one. It is also controlled. Whether you are in TPM driven organizations or hybrid, the chances are very close to 100% that your organization is in a false agile or at least a hybrid model at best. Why can I make such a bold statement? Because most of the systems within which PMOs live are driven from a management and control environment. And this is caused by the company boards. They implement corporate governance that manages the risk of the shareholders. Or that's the intent. With risk-averse executives, this drives the culture, the behavior, even the operating model and execution systems in organizations. It also drives the model for the appointment of executives and management. Corporate governance is the most important factor in the adoption of anything in a public company. In my lifetime, I've not yet experienced a public company that adopted modern corporate governance models. However, this will change as people like me start highlighting the risks this has for the future of the existence of companies. So back to my original point, meetings and artifacts. This is the focus of TPM. Guys, if I say TPM, I mean traditional project management. The irony is, traditional projects success is measured against a plan. I want to try and navigate a mind shift here, because I'm making an accusation and you might disagree, but that's fine. But I want you to see why I say this. The project success is not measured by the goals and objectives. That's something separate. And it's important that you understand they're chasing the plan. And to top it all, the lingo is all over the place. And it's often misunderstood by the speakers. Scope, user stories, MVP, big one, often misunderstood. Value, burn down chart, this velocity, SMART criteria, customer centricity, cadence. Each word has its purpose to explain to stakeholders why we are late, why we can't commit, why there is unexplained complexity, why our confidence level is a 3 out of a 5. And what does that exactly mean? I mean, seriously. Why we rate our complexity as high, why we sized it as an extra large, why we allocate 5 story points. Why? Even heard people saying 5 story points is a day's work. Seriously? Then say it's a day's work. The focus is on the wrong outcomes. In project methodology specific models, our goals are not what we are going to deliver. The focus is on methodology and following the discipline. However, these methodologies are designed for complex delivery that are still controlled. But first, let me get something off my chest after enduring SAFE for 5 years. I know there was people that registered for this session with SAFE certification, but I have to say this. SAFE is a micromanager's dream methodology. And yes, I said methodology. It reuses awesome existing methodologies, but it puts it in a framework that controls them. So in a degree, it's a methodology. It is the world's most expensive, complex, and constrained false agile project methodology. It adds many certifications, many meetings, many artifacts, and even operating model changes. And it commits the cardinal sin of delivery. It breaks momentum. Here's another bummer. You know, projects are born from company strategy, right? I don't know if you've known that, but that's where it starts. Imagine you're an executive. You've just spent 3 months to a year writing a strategy and dealing with the insane stress, and believe me, it is also stuff, to get it approved. Just to discover only 20% of the stuff people are working on in projects are aligned to work that was prioritized by the company strategy. A recent poll among C-level executives brought the percentage to close to 70%, 70, of them that feel projects are not working on stuff related to their strategy. The reason for this is not people that's ignorant or stupid. The reason for this is often given to communication, operating processes, general misalignment, and a lack of support. I don't really agree with that. Okay, let's stick on the topic. A recent study by Gallup also indicated that most executives felt they had 10% support for their organizational strategy priorities. Only 10%. Now think about your organization, especially the big ones. How much office politics and career advancement strategies and techniques is there? And these are all killers of strategies. But here's a big one. There's many more reasons. But organizational strategies do not drive the end result through methods like SAFe, TPM, and Agile. They certainly don't address it. There's a very good reason for this, and that is aiming for the wrong target. Now add complexity and boom, you have this universe of stars and planets to shoot for. In SAFe, TPM, and Agile, stuff are risk-driven. So if the strategy steers into one direction, the project will take a deviation because we've got constraints, risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies, crates. So the focus is not on landing the strategy, it is avoiding and dealing executive risk. Ironically, achieving exactly the opposite. Debate this as much as you like, but the end result is many change controls that are used to manage risk. Historically, this worked very well, okay? Worked well enough. But at the rate innovation and change is happening at the moment, the dealing with risks in itself is not just a risk, but an issue. Is the current way we're working and delivering going to work in the future? Hell no. It's a sure way of failing. Do this make sense in order to innovate? No. But does it even make sense in any way? Well, there's another aspect that is often forgotten, and that is the chasing the plan lens. See, SAFe and TPM has this nagging issue that it's always chasing the plan. The focus is the plan. And yes, I know. There's this constant referring to customer value this and value that. But the big issue is that a plan is 100% guaranteed to change. And when that happens, everyone in the organization seems either in shock that it changed or surprised it didn't happen sooner. Chasing a plan, once again, puts the focus on the wrong target. A plan is a prediction at best. It's not a target. I'm also stating that customer value is not the correct way of measuring success either, because the way we're doing it at the current moment, it's a guess at best. Ask any artist who writes music. You can see them there. There's 3 examples on the side of the presentation. If they expected their biggest hits to be a hit. Customer value is almost impossible to predict. It's simply an opinion of something that might work. It's also not aligning to the progress on the company's strategy. In fact, it is a measure based on fluffy clouds, in my opinion. The real measure of success should be, did it iteratively deliver the strategic intent in an efficient and fast way? A couple of years ago, I ran a sales team for one of my many business ventures that I had. Every Monday, I had what I called an inspiration session. Sales are one of the hardest jobs you can imagine having. It literally builds people or breaks people, because you deal with 10 no's for every yes. Personally, I sat crying in my car once after what felt like an infinite number of no's. I'm 6'4", a real manly man, and yes, I cried. Sales were not easy. Anyway, the inspiration sessions always ended with sales goals for the week. There was a rule though. If I was aiming for 5 sales, my sales team had to aim for 10 sales. This was normally because we actually only needed 2 sales to make the cut. See, if you want to aim for 5 sales, because your goal is 5, you will definitely miss the target. You have to aim for more. Then you are pretty sure you will reach the target. Did it matter what our plans was? Would we be tracking our plans or the tangible sales? You may have many plans of how you will reach the target, but that doesn't matter. While you're busy selling, you also need to understand that you probably will have a lot of adaptations that you have to go through, because not a single sale is the same. Reaching a goal, however, is what matters. That was money in the bank. Now imagine we chose sales by chasing the plans we made. In the same way, work requires the same inspiration session. You need to overcommit if you want to reach the targets that you're committing to. That way, you almost always over-deliver on expectations. However, if this becomes the standard, it takes away the inspiration, because it simply becomes the new normal. One of my dev leads grasped this concept very, very quickly. And I loved watching her face in sessions, because when she was committing work, you could literally see her face. She had an ace up her sleeve, constantly solving problems to get things done faster. She knew I would have her back. I was only interested in the results. How she made it happen was up to her. Point is, she made commitments and not just stuck to them. She delivered beyond expectations. But this was her problem to solve, not mine. I had a goal. She had the recipe. Project management always dealt with things in a careful way. And I'm not taking away any of the importance of all activities involved with it. To this day, even in an agile project, I still write product descriptions in order to do a work breakdown structure. It is the only way for me to set up realistic goals for my team. This is also a non-negotiable for any entrepreneurial PM. You must follow the basic steps in project management if you want to lead an entrepreneurial team. But you do not involve your team with large analysis and interrogation sessions. You must tap into your experience and do all of it on your own yourself. Yes, you still write the project charter, objectives and goals. You still do work breakdown structures. You still do stakeholder analysis, etc. This planning you do will remain living documentation, because you're going to learn new info, you will update it, etc. But as a manager, I always believed that everything I did was for my personal benefit in doing my job better. As a program manager, I had many project managers working for me through the years. A large percentage of them had come to me management style. They had daily meetings with their teams and weekly status meetings where they received these updates from their teams. I took the picture that you can see there on the left from LinkedIn. I can't remember who I took it from. I was looking for the person, I couldn't find it, but it's so fitting. You have management shouting and screaming for delivery at the PM or the coach in this picture. Then you have the people doing the work being pulled in all directions, and they're totally unable to do their work. I believe managers deliver nothing. Therefore, they have no right to interfere with people that actually do the work. In my world, the role of a manager is to tap into their skills to enable their teams. If you see something you can do to help someone in your team, then do it. That's your job. Your engineers, your analysts, architects, modelers, these people are celebrities. They actually deliver the work, not you. Don't be that manager that go home at the end of the day tired and proud of delivering nothing but important meetings. where you changed your plan and that your robotic team is executing. That's not delivery. That is talking a lot. And it's often just hampering real work, to be quite frank. Be that manager that logs into Jira. See that your team has work in today's committed backlog that they are struggling with. Contact them in Teams and ask them, can I try and sort this for you quick? Now that's a leader. That is servant leaders. Not a plan chaser, not that PM that has the come to me attitude. The current way of doing things is simple. Analysis paralysis, then design, then code test and release. The reasoning is simple. We need to do it that way because we are working with highly complex stuff. And because we build it, we run it, and we own it. We will not want to break stuff in production, do we? If that is your driver, then you need to solve a bigger problem, because is there insufficiently maintained documentation in organization? What is the status of your environments? What is the state of your automated testing? Does everyone in the organization have access to the information they need? Do your organization have AI tools implemented that can assist solving these problems? I was handed a troubled project once where the external vendor was burning budget for a year but couldn't deliver anything. Now, the original idea was that I pick up the project and start driving the delivery. However, I picked up that my predecessor did not do a proper RFP. Fortunately, I had a world-class enterprise architect in my team, and we did a position paper. She picked up that the bank already had a system internally, but with another division. This system could satisfy 85% of all our requirements. It was an easy and cost-effective pivot. The fact that this was not picked up sooner was a concern though, but it wasn't really a surprise. See, when most organizations complete a project and a project is closed, all documentation is saved and archived with the purpose of if an audit is needed. Again, the focus is on risk for explanation of failures. This is a stupid approach if you're entrepreneurial, of course. Now, I know there's other systems that you can tap into, but it's often something that's not easily accessible and only certain people have access. But if all capabilities are easily searchable in a tool, the game changes. Governance is an accidental benefit. The focus is cost and time efficiency for delivery, because you definitely cannot analyze everything from scratch every time. And that's what's happening. It's happening. People with every project do it from scratch again. The Entinology planning approach works from a flight plan to a roadmap approach. The flight plan happens from an objective level, whilst the roadmap views delivery down to the sprint level. Now, I want to jump to that because I want you to understand in context that we're using tools like Jira to navigate capabilities. That if I want to go and search for capabilities that projects landed, I can actually easily access it on Jira. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Let's talk about the planning. This is the first part of 3 systems. Planning happens at a rhythm. And I'll come back to it at the end again, what the difference is. Planning happens at a rhythm. The first part of planning is normally strategy, which is done in agreement with the board and the executives. Out of that, the executives then extract the strategic goals, which are basically handed to the portfolio level management. The portfolio level management then do quarter increment objectives. So they write down the objectives that they derive from the goals. And those objectives are allocated for delivery for 3 months. from those objectives, sprint goals, which is then the high-level deliverables that are planned from a QIO's perspective, the quarterly increment objectives, by the product owners, the chapter leads, and the team leaders. I know that I don't know if you know the terminology or POCLAC. I think it's came from Europe somewhere. So people from Europe probably will be familiar with that term. Then you've got daily delivery, which is planned by the individuals doing the work to ensure sprint goals are landed on time. And this normally takes them an hour to do. At this point, I just want to remind you, planning is a prediction at best. But Entinology uses planning as the navigation tool that tells us how to get somewhere. Let us use an analogy of me having to travel and look for business opportunities. And this is then the organization's strategy. Now, strategy is normally for a period of 3 years or longer. So after speaking to a few people, we decide that the best destination for this year, in line with, for example, the 3-year strategy, is to travel from Johannesburg in South Africa to Paris in France and then to Sydney in Australia, looking for business opportunities, because this is also one of the strategic goals. If I ask someone that has been around and has traveled a lot, they will quickly tell me how long it will take and more or less what it will cost me. They will even give me some handy tips. They will tell me from this airport you can travel to that airport, do switch in flights, and then head to Sydney next, etc. Is there at any stage a point in harassing my people with details like what vehicles to use on the roads, what that I will travel on, how much fuel I need to put in my rental car in France? Did you know before the time that a surprise snowstorm might change your modes of travel completely? And did you know that during your meeting in France, you would meet the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce in Netherlands and would actually travel by train to the Netherlands for a meeting? No, you didn't. You don't care. It should not be important, nor possible to even predict. You're simply tapping into the experience and asking estimations to reach your targets for the duration of that year. Now, I can start breaking my year up into quarters. We can plan to be in Paris, France for the first 3 months, plan another 3 months to also explore opportunities in Italy, Germany, and England, fly to Australia via Dubai, and plan to spend another month of work in Dubai, and then fly to Australia for 4 months, visit, and then back to Johannesburg for another month. This is a quarterly planning. So what I like to is just to plan for 3 months intervals. But now I am at the point where my leadership team can take over the next stage in planning. They can start planning in a bit more detail and accuracy. What I think I will be doing every 2 weeks for every 3 months plan. They can, for example, say, well, for my first 2 weeks, I will do the following. I will travel to our Tambo airport, fly to Paris, France. I will stay in a hotel, book sessions for business meetings in Paris. The following 2 weeks, I will attend meetings in Marseille and Lyon. The 2 weeks following that, I will attend meetings in Berlin and Hamburg in Germany. So they do a breakdown of activities they believe can be done every 2 weeks for the duration of the quarter year. These will eventually be the sprint goals. I'm not talking Scrum here. I'm talking about sprint goals from the system I'm using. At this stage, your leadership team will also have a good idea of what methodologies and tools to use to execute the work, as well as who the chapter leads will be to assign the work to. Now that we know we are planning to do the following stuff for the next sprint increments, we hand it to the chapter leads and delivery squads to handle the detail. These are the people that will actually handle every aspect of my daily activities. I will have my travel manager that will book my daily travel needs, rented vehicles. Do I need a 4x4, a luxury car, or maybe public transport? I've my accommodation engineer. I'm just joking with the names, guys. It's just to give you an association. That will book and manage my accommodation needs. I have my legal expert that will ensure that all the licenses I need, passports, travel documentation, etc., is ready when needed. I can carry on and on, but I guess you get it by now. These are the people I will phone from my unplanned visit to Gibraltar to change my flights to Italy next. I trust them to do the activities because they are experienced and talented enough to know what they do. This is the daily delivery parts of the plan. This analogy goes with the rhythm part of business travel, of the business travel project. The strategy planning happens, for example, every 3 years. The strategy goals happens every year. The quarterly increment objectives happens every 3 months, and it takes about 2 days to do. And I'm talking from experience. The sprint goals have a circular planning every 2 weeks, and it takes about a day to do. But remember, this is with the clock. And the daily delivery happens with our actual team members that's doing the work, our celebrities, and that planning takes them an hour to do, and it more or less a 2-hour session for them to also add it to Jira. You will notice that it has some correlation with SAFe, because this was used in a SAFe environment where I refused that my team spend 2 weeks planning every 3 months. It broke their momentum. I refused for that to happen. So I made a different way of planning work, and that happened at a certain rhythm. All of this, as I said before, is represented in a flight plan and a roadmap. Now, if you're using Jira, it can be very, very cool and visually very attractive, and very it points out every dependency, and you can see daily what's happening, what's the progress. Now, the travels are also documented and facilitated by a really cool invention that uses limited memory AI, like a car's GPS system. It can also have predictions, like when you travel in traffic, of where the next car is, possible traffic jams, and represents the impact on dependencies. If my squad members identify that I need to visit Zurich in Switzerland before I visit Hamburg in Germany, the impact can immediately be seen visibly. So on Jira, you can literally see it move. We can make adaptations to calibrate and stay on target. I might have to sacrifice a coffee in Naples to make up for the lost time. I don't know. The same is true if something went quicker than expected. I can sneak in an extra meeting in Paris and get the best coffee in Europe at Cafe Shop. Who knows? Point is, we navigate and adapt as we execute our plan in line with the original strategy. Nowhere do I have to go and ask for permission from my overlords to do things. My expert squad function laser-like with the target in mind. They're executing the strategy. And that is executing it at rhythm. The next one of the three sisters is flow. On the other hand, other people in the company, they heard I was heading to Europe and Australia, and they can now add some ideas of what they think I can achieve in line with the strategy. Peter knows a guy that can get me in a meeting with the French president. He feels this will open up a whole world of opportunities for our business. Sally thinks we should look at the latest green technology in Amsterdam. And she knows the COO of a company in Amsterdam that specializes in it. The head of marketing also feels it would be a great idea if we put the travels up on social media. as it can give our brand a fantastic exposure. All these amazing ideas are part of the flow. There's no constraints. People have some great ideas and the entire organization works toward a common goal. This is the flow side of the Three Sisters. It has no constraints, and some of these ideas might even take 12 months to deliver, like the travel video. These ideas have acceptance criteria, and we can ensure that when I attend applicable meetings, I can measure the outcome and whether or not success was achieved. It's very much like requirements or user stories. The flow is normally tracked in Jira on a Kanban board and linked to each of the actual deliverables which we do next. The last of the Three Sisters is momentum. Now, first, let me be clear. Delivery is done with momentum. Planning is cadence. Cadence is a drumbeat. Doof, doof, doof. It happens at specifically defined intervals. Delivery with momentum happens continuously. The faster it can happen, the better. It has no constraints. It improves with practice. It is something that happens at squad level. It is not driven top down. It's not for management to focus on. Management must focus on the enablement of the team to get it done. In fact, management must be obsessed with clearing obstacles, not control. So how does momentum work? For squad members, it's focusing on what they are best at. They use AI tools, plan their daily work every 2 weeks, and they deliver with transparency and respect other squad members enough to use the tools like Jira properly. All of this will greatly contribute to delivering momentum, and it will constantly improve. One of the greatest enablers in the Entinology system is the use of working tools like Jira. Now, I reference Jira a lot. In South Africa, that is our main tool. Jira, if correctly configured, allows insane benefits and automation. Imagine the CEO sitting in his office having a coffee with a few of his executives, and the chief marketing officer thinks aloud, I wonder if the website team already included my requirement for the font color and the login page to be changed from blue to green. The CEO, doing a quick search on Jira, and within seconds responds, it seems it was put in QA on Friday. Immediate, transparent views. No more meetings to discover stuff you forgot to ask in the previous meeting. No more meetings about another meeting about the meeting we still need to set up. Everything is there. It's accessible at a fingertip. Now, imagine in line with the previous example of travel, my legal expert linking my business visa to travel to France as a predecessor to meetings booked in France. The roadmap and flight plan visually represents this. There's a relationship dependency view that will visually bottleneck all my meetings and activities in France being dependent on it. Now imagine a delay on my visa. Every activity will now visibly move into a blocker state because of it. Now in the old days, we had to now do analysis, prepare a magic plan, go for change control, whatever. But how you're supposed to do it is we can simply just quickly pivot. We changed my travel plans to start in Australia instead. This will then immediately enable us to visualize the change on the roadmap and dependency view. Now imagine you are one of the passionate creators of the company strategy document. You can visually see how I'm traveling from country to country. You can see how the plan changes and why. You can see where you might be able to sort out some blockers or help. There's less meetings. It's more efficient. This is how we've been working the past 5 years. But the use of this powerful system comes with a major change across the organization, and it starts with the leadership. There is a balance between leadership maturity and emotional overreacting. Your squads will only be transparent if they can trust the leadership. If you want to read stuff and storm into help every day, trust is gone and the whole system fails. In this system, the people doing the work are the masters. Management is there to serve them. If you do not get that, this will not work for you. So, in summary, the world today is much different than it was a year ago. This means that the adoption of entrepreneurial system changes many interesting things in an organization. In the AI advanced future we are already in, the system will require an assimilation by everything in an organization. This includes a transformation from company boards to the squads that execute the work. The success recipe for the three sisters of delivery requires understanding planning at rhythm, innovating with flow, and delivering with momentum. Amongst other things, it requires the use of tools like Jira, using its roadmap, dependency links, strategic goals, objectives, and sprint goals being linked. It also requires an entrepreneurial culture with transparency, responsibility, accountability, and leadership maturity. Our next session will be about how we do innovation in a corporate setting. So I would like to give you a quick overview of Entinology so you understand where we're going with this. Entinology certification is a world first. It doesn't exist anywhere else. It provides you with clarity on the future of entrepreneurial project management in such a way that you can apply it in practice with full understanding of what, why, and how. It's a system that provides you with the foundation of navigating successful delivery in such a way that agile practices can optimize delivery with momentum. It also provides you with a system that focuses on method agnostic delivery, so you can use any method you want within. I think that is today's session. As usual, you can see there's a review form, and I really would like you guys to please give me a review on this session. This one was way different from the previous two, so I'll appreciate some feedback, honest feedback on it. Right, so there's also the page that you can contact me with. If you want to have any discussion, you can WhatsApp me, you can signal me. We're also the proud sponsors of the Project People.co.za awards. You can do South African, you can go nominate people there, and we will then put them out for awards. Guys, thank you very much. Have a good evening if you're in South Africa and in Europe. Thank you for honoring me with your presence.